Today's guest's recruiting and basketball journey has taken him all over the world. Joining me now is the head coach of the Minot State men's basketball team, Matt Murken. Now, Coach, quite a journey already for you with the Beavers in the few years that you've been here. What's been kind of some of the highs and lows of that journey?
That's a good question. Starting off the bat with the heavy hitter.
100%.
No, it's been a lot of fun. I think the chance to move to Minot and take over the program right when it was our first year at NCAA Division II was kind of the start of the journey for me, and just kind of it was an interesting time with our athletic department at that time. We were coming off the flood. There had been some debate about if Division II was the best move for us, I think, before I got here. And the leadership of the university, was a different athletic director, different president at that time, but those guys were committed to going NCAA Division II and making a jump. And then there was a coaching changes. I think two different coaches over a three-year span right before I got here. So a lot of change going on in our community, but also on our campus here, and taking over the program during that, and then trying to build it from there. And Minot State basketball had a lot of success in the past and had a lot of really good coaches and just some awesome guys that had worked here and worked to build a foundation. And that was kind of what led me to here, even though maybe there was some down times right about the time that we had made that bounce to Division II and to the NSIC conference. And so that was kind of the start of it. And then from there, that first year, a lot of ups and downs. We beat a top 25 team, which was huge for us. We lost to an NAIA team, which wasn't very fun. We lost to the team I'd coached the year before. University of Jamestown came up here and beat us, which was no fun at all. And two kids that were All-Americans for us, I think, combined for about 60 points. And
they were like, "What's up, Coach?"
The whole game, they talked a lot the whole game to me specifically, and I don't blame them. I probably would have too. They weren't too happy that I was on the other sideline. But that was a lot of fun to see them be successful, just not that night when they beat us. But from there, in about year 3, we thought we had a lot of guys in our program that were going to be good players. And we've had a lot of kids that were fun to coach through that time. And kind of, that I think it was year 4, we had the first winning record since we've been Division II, and that was a highlight. And then winning 20 games a couple years ago was a big highlight too. That was a thing that, quite honestly, when this job was open and I was talking to Rick Hedberg, our former AD, about the job, there was a lot of people in the NSIC that I've known since I coached in this league already as an assistant, and a lot of people said it was impossible to win at Minot State, that they didn't know what they were getting themselves into and going D2, and that it would never be possible. So it really felt good to kind of get that first winning record, and then went to win 20 games as well. But that's a story of college basketball, is just the ups and downs that you're going to see as far as wins and losses. It's coaching itself, it's a profession. It's just crazy because 30 days a year you're gonna have look at the end of the day, and it's going to be really visual for everybody to see. Did they win or did they lose? Sometimes you don't play very well, but the scoreboard says you win, and sometimes you play really well and the scoreboard says you lose. But I think those ups and downs are really high and really low. But a lot of the relationships that you build, and right now with all that's been going on in our country, and some of the things that have been happening in the last 7 or 8 days, my goal is to talk to every guy I've ever coached. I'm only about halfway through that right now, because that's a lot of guys. But that's really the biggest ups, is just some of those relationships with the guys you stay in touch with over the years, and to check back in and see what they're doing with their lives and the impact they're making in their communities. And we've had a lot of guys here that we've coached that are just doing awesome things all over the United States and really all over the world that we're checking in with. So that's probably the biggest highlight that I have from my time here so far.
You'll have all those talks knocked out with the guys by the time this airs, too, so that's a good thing, Coach. When you were making the move out of Jamestown, did you have the NSIC or the Division II level on your mind for the next move at all? And did it make it a pretty simple choice for Minot State in that regard?
Yeah, it was. I was an assistant coach at Wayne State College. I was there for 6 years in the NSIC. 1 year as a graduate assistant and 5 as an assistant. And really loved a lot of things about this league and a lot of the advantages, I think, of being at Division II. I played at an NAI school. I coached at an NAI school. I coached at the high school level. And I really kind of had my eyes on getting back to Division II. Now, at the same time, we were coming off a year we'd won 26 games at Jamestown, and we had a great senior class, but we had a lot of really good guys coming back. So it wasn't necessarily easy to leave that group of guys that I developed a relationship with, and really that community as a whole I really enjoyed Jamestown as a sports community, and just as far as the university goes, there's a lot of really good people there. So it wasn't necessarily just easy to leave. I don't know that it ever is. But once I came up to Minot and spent the day here on the interview process, and Rick Hedrick, as I said, was our athletic director at that time, and spending the day with him and seeing the vision that he had for Minot State athletics, and knowing that it was going to be a long process to get where he wanted to be, and a lot of the things that he wanted to get done have gotten accomplished, and some of the things that I wanted to do when I came here we haven't got done yet. But by the time I was done with that day on campus, I knew it was going to be a great place to be. So, and in some ways, yes, an easy choice, and in some ways, no, because I was at a place that I loved as well, and I wasn't looking for a job either when Minot State came calling. I was really happy with where I was at. So some yes, some no on that one.
That vision of the school sells you on it. How was the other way around? Like, why do you think they thought you were the right guy for the job?
Well, I think at that point in time, they're making the move here, and Minot State's going from NAI to D2. So I think they really wanted somebody that had some good experience at the Division II level, and somebody who had some experience in the NSIC. And it's the thing that every coach says, right? Is, hey, we're in the best region in Class B basketball, or hey, we're in the best conference in Division I, or we're in the best this. And everybody says that, and I'm just going to say it too, but the NSIC is just such a tremendous conference. We've had so many national champions in really every sport that I think at that point in time, they wanted somebody who was familiar with that and kind of what it took to be successful in this conference. And at the same time, I'd had a lot of success in the state of North Dakota, so I think that was a big part of it as well. I recruited this area. We had recruited the state of North Dakota, and we're familiar with the players here and starting to build some relationships, and then also had won the DAC conference and had a really good team. I think of just high-quality young men that had a lot of success in basketball, and I think carried themselves the right way. So I think a lot of those things combined to make it a good fit both ways for me to move up here and to take over Beaver basketball right when we were making that jump to D2.
You weren't making a hardcore effort to exactly change jobs, and it kind of worked at Minot State after the visit, like you said. So I just wanted to get you to talk about a little bit about the success that you had at Jamestown. Tough leave, but I mean, you guys did a lot of good things there.
Well, yeah, I think it was, Jamestown was a little bit different when I got there, because they were coming off of a year where they had won 20 games, and they were just 19 or 20, and they're looking to kind of take the next step as a program. So I just had to tweak a few things and really hit the ground running. We were able to do that as a coaching staff and as a program, and kind of continue their success there. But we really felt like we had something built there that was going to last for a long time and be sustainable and be a we were in the top 10 in the country most that year, and we thought we could sustain a top 10 team for a long time. But at the same time, I'm a guy who loves challenges as well, and just the challenge that was set forth at Minot State, and to be here, to be in D2, to be a first-year Division II team, a first-year team in a conference. It was just such a exciting challenge, and it is such an exciting challenge that, you know, when Rick had called me at that time, it was something that I was interested in. But as I said, when I came up here and just started meeting people and seeing the long-term vision for our athletic department, which has just continued to grow since I've been here, it was something that I couldn't resist. The challenge that laid in front of us, and kind of the opportunity that it presented as well.
Curious if you've learned anything when you were a grad assistant at Wayne State that has really stuck with you to this day.
Yeah, I learned so many things. You know, I think one of the first things I learned is that I didn't know anything about basketball.
Ideal.
Which is good to learn early when you're a coach, because as a player, you know, we won over 100 games in my career when I was at Concordia University in Nebraska, and 3 national tournament appearances in my time there, and a great coach in Coach Grant Schmidt, and then our 2 assistant coaches, Micah Parker and Devin Smith, are both really high-level athletic directors now that have been successful, and just such a successful program. And I thought, since we'd won a lot of games, and since I was fortunate enough to work my way through and be a captain there and be involved in a little bit of that success, I thought I knew a lot about basketball. And then 1 year coaching at the high school level, and then being a part-time coach at an NAI team, Mount Mercy College in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We got ranked in the top 25 a little bit at the NAI level, and I thought I knew a whole lot about basketball. And then got to the Division II level, and really fortunate, a guy by the name of Rico Burkett, that's a pretty well-known from his days playing at University of North Dakota. He was a great player there when they made it to the Final Four, when North Dakota was a D2 team. Rico gave me a chance to coach at the D2 level, that just really jump-started my career. And I got there, and one of the first things I learned is, at the Division II level, you're going to be expected to run your program the exact same way that the Division I level does. You're going to be expected to recruit, you know, probably, you know, nearly every weekend of the year. You're going to be expected to have great detailed scouting reports, to run study halls, to have film sessions on a daily basis, both team and individual. To game plan the heck out of your opponent, and do all those things that a Division I school will do. But you're gonna do it with 1 head coach, 1 assistant, and 1 graduate assistant probably, and no strength coach at that time, and no money. Mm-hmm. And when you're in that position, you gotta really work. And I learned that working in college basketball doesn't mean 40 or 50 or 60 hours. It probably means 80-hour weeks, and that's okay if you love it. And just how to be resourceful, and that was just so valuable for me to see those things, and for him to give me a chance to. And then I was fortunate that our assistant coach was Eric Henderson, who's now the head coach at South Dakota State University. And after a year, Hendo moved on, and I was able to get bumped up to a full-time assistant coach. And I wasn't ready for that, but I figured it out, and kind of just learned even more on a day-to-day basis. So just being understaffed like that is sometimes you have to be so inventive, and you have to be so creative on how to do the things that you need to get done. And you learn so many skills beyond basketball and X's and O's is about. And then all that being said, and I'm grateful for that, but Rico really taught me how to treat people, and what it takes to make a difference in young people's lives. And I'm really grateful for him for that, because he's one of the best dudes I know. He's an assistant coach at Colorado State University now on the women's side, and really successful there. So just really fortunate to be around some really good coaches in that time. And that's if you're a coach kind of junkie at that time, there's a coach had moved up to Northern State shortly thereafter, Don Meyer, who's really kind of the coach's coach, and really famous with coaches for running clinics and just being a great teacher of the game. And when I moved to Wayne, I was able to live in his mom's basement. Actually, she let the graduate assistants live there a lot of times.
Nice.
Pretty low rent, and she didn't charge us as much as she should. And her son was a coach, and kind of knew that guys had to pay their way through and, or earn their way through with not next to no money. And we went through one time the guys that had been graduate assistants in that program, and I mean the number of head coaches. We've got an assistant coach at Drake. We've got a head coach in Arizona. We've got a bunch of guys that are athletic directors around the country now. Paul Sather, that's at North Dakota now, was a graduate assistant there at that program at Wayne State for a while. And actually, Matt Entz was the graduate assistant at Wayne State for football. So, man, a lot of those guys came through before me, but what a bunch of success. People learned how to coach at that place, and there was a really culture of maybe taking people who didn't know what they're doing, like me, but would work hard and figure things out. And we had some great teachers back in those days that, man, it really made a difference in my life, really, in a lot of ways.
How was the food at the grad assistant house?
Man, it was, I remember, and we laugh about this a little bit as coaches, but you go on the road trip and you get pizzas after the game, and you're hoping that you can order one extra $6 pizza from Papa John's because you need to eat that for the rest of the weekend because you don't have enough money. I made $4,000 as a graduate assistant, and back then I was 26 years old, so I could still play a little bit. And we went to Hawaii, and I couldn't resist getting in the practice, and I'm mixing it up, and I was always diving around and that sort of thing. And I caught an elbow and got split open. All right, so we're in Hawaii. We're playing 2 games in a tournament there. First day of practice, I get my face split open. I've got the trainer convinced to stitch me up because I don't have any medical insurance. And he's going to stitch me up, and it's a pretty bad cut, and he decides it's on my face, so he can't do it. I try to convince him it's not going to get any worse the way I look, so just stitch that baby up. But Kurt wanted to do it, so he takes me to the hospital. I get a $1,000 bill. I make $4,000 the whole year. So I had to figure that deal out. So I got it paid off before too long, but there wasn't much left over for food after rent.
How much was that again?
So the bill for the stitches was around $2,000.
Oh, okay.
Out of my $4,000 stipend for the year. So there wasn't much left for food. There was a lot of people taking care of me in those days, thankfully.
Yeah.
And a lot of team meals, I got my fill. Let's just say that.
100%. At least Hawaii is a nice place. If you had to get your face split open, or if you didn't have a lot of money, at least it's a nice place to be for at least that trip. Any other kind of money-stretching tactics come to mind from those days, Coach?
Well, I remember the doctor told me no swimming after I got those stitches, and I found a way to go swimming still out in the ocean after we were done playing. Man, the money stretching, I umpired a lot of baseball games to make extra money. I'll tell you that. Man, I don't even know how we got through as graduate assistants there, but that's, like I said, that's one thing. I've never had a problem with a budget as a head coach after some. So my first 4 years of coaching, I tell people, my first 4 years of coaching, I got paid $5,000 total, plus a video camera. Because my first year as a high school coach, they couldn't pay me, but my head coach there, a guy named Wes Bruns, who's a great high school coach, a guy I stay in touch with this day. He bought me a video camera because he knew I liked to go scout the other teams. So he bought me that, and that was the start of my love of breaking down film. But yeah, $5,000 in 4 years of coaching, you gotta be creative. I'll tell you that.
living in the penthouse, that's for sure. So when you look back at all your coaching stops, and even when you were a GA, what were some of the best players you were around, or the best teams that you were involved in across all the levels, the way they competed?
Man, that's a good question. There's a whole lot of guys that I coached that, when I look back, we played at Wayne this year, and afterwards I think there was 8 guys there that I coached. They come over to the gym to stop in, and one of them spoke to the team, to our Minot State team. but like four or five of those guys were 1,000-point scorers. I mean, we've so many great players, both as an assistant coach and as a head coach. One of my favorite guys I coached that was not one of the best players, going all the way back to when I first started, is a guy named Brian Berg. He was at Texas Tech when they lost the national title game a couple years ago. He's the head coach at Georgia State now. Just got that job. So we've coached a lot of coaches at the places I've been, because we do a lot. We're really in detail with a lot of things. One of my guys at University of Jamestown, his name Travis Burley, that was a first-team All-American, was a great player for us. And then since we've been here, Tyler Rudolph had such a great career. These are probably the guys that had the best stats, and Rudy really helped us turn our program around. And is probably one of the greatest players to ever play here. All-time leading scorer and rebounder. Yesterday was Rudy's birthday, so I gave him a hard time yesterday. But just so fortunate to have so many guys that were, some of those guys are really good and in the record books, and some of those guys really that help turn your program around are guys that maybe other outside people don't notice, but their work ethic. Thomas Korf here is one of those guys, and he's in the record books because he did score 1,000 points and break the record for threes. But just some of those guys that believed in you as a coach right away when other people didn't, and we're just great leaders. There's too many. I've had too many guys that I love coaching to go through them all.
Focusing on Tyler Rudolph for just a second here. Century guy comes up to Minot State, then he goes to overseas pro basketball after his Beavers career is over. Just curious, what was it like talking with him about opportunities like that? And does it kind of start with him when you maybe impart lessons of having the work ethic to your players that come up in North Dakota high school basketball about where you can take things from here?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely. I remember we were down. This is one of the first, might have been the first or second summer I was here. And I knew about Tyler when I was the head coach at Jamestown. We started recruiting him there when he was a freshman. And and we really want to get the best in-state kids for sure. And so we knew about him as a freshman. He was on varsity a little bit at Century. Didn't play a ton, but did some things there on a team. That was the team that I believe his freshman year was the year Carson Wentz was kind of their best player. And so Carson was a pretty good basketball player too, such a good athlete. And when we were recruiting Rudy, we were down, a number of guys from Minot had driven down. Some of the golf courses here were still in tough shape at that time from the flood, right? Mm-hmm. So we had driven down, and I'd met some guys down in Hawktree, down in Bismarck. They had a game. They play every Wednesday night or something like that. Kind of a running game down there that they play. So I played some golf down there and had a great time talking with a lot of Beaver boosters and Beaver alumni. And they were gonna, I don't remember if they were gonna go back out or they were gonna get something to eat. And those guys invited me to stick around. And I said, man, I got to take off. I got to go. This is like sometime in June. I said, I got to go to the gym. I got to go watch a kid play down in Bismarck. Those guys thought I was crazy. But it was Rudy. I think he was a junior then. And I'm glad I went and watched him on that Wednesday night. But that was one thing that I know Rudy respected about our coaching staff at that time is it's a Wednesday in the middle of June and we're going to come watch his open gym because we wanted that kid really bad. And that's what a lot of people don't see that the number of times you go watch. We probably watched Rudy play in his high school gym. We probably saw him 30 times. And then on summer travel stuff, probably saw 30 more live games. Mm-hmm. And it was, all that work was worth it for sure because he's such a great guy.
And you got him. And you got him. Yeah.
And yeah, of course, you don't always get those players. But then we wanted to recruit him because we thought he knew how to win coming out of a good program at Century. But we thought he knew how to work, and it was important to him, and we thought he loved playing basketball. And I mean, that guy, there's people in our athletic department, a lot of other coaches that still talk about the things that he would do outside of practice, work ethic wise. We tried to help him be successful, and we probably gave him a few little things that worked, but most of his development was just how his work ethic and the extra time he put in. And those are the type of kids we want to have in our program is people that aren't finished products as a player, as a person. They want to work, they want to grow, they love basketball because they know anytime it's legal for us to do that, we'll drive over and open the gym at any time of the day for our guys to work out. He took a big advantage of that and just kept getting better and better. And like you said, he ends up being an All-American, plays professionally in Spain, got hurt last year and had to take the year off, but he'll have opportunities to play again this next season, depending on what happens with some of those leagues overseas. So, yeah, and he is a guy that we talk about with a lot of guys, like not the most highly recruited guy at all, but a guy who loved the game and loved getting better and just, he loved being in here on a Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock in the gym by himself as much as he loved being in here on Friday or Saturday night for a big conference game.
What was it like going back and forth discussing his professional opportunities?
Well, he had put himself in a good position by having such a good career that there was agents that were trying to recruit him and get in touch with him prior to his senior year even, and he made a smart move to choose an agent that had represented a lot of Division II student athletes and could put him in a league to be successful and play a lot. He didn't want to go somewhere and sit. I think that was kind of the big thing with him is get somewhere where he can play and have fun and just experience another part of the world, And he's able to go, as he went to Spain, he was able to go spend a lot of time there. His mom and dad were able to come over. His girlfriend was able to come over for a long period of time. I think when they had break, their Christmas break from playing, he was able to go to Paris with his girlfriend and just do some things that maybe you can't do if he would have started his accounting career right away or whatever. But he's going to be super successful no matter what he does. He's got a great education here. He's a guy who loves to work. And if he chooses to keep playing, he'll have success with that. And when he chooses to kind of start his business career, he'll be super successful with that as well.
Wanted to real quick touch on your experience with agents in D2. You kind of hear about it for like guys in the NBA and the NFL, but there's agents even at that level thinking about overseas. Do they originate out of overseas? Are they over here sending guys overseas? What's that like?
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously basketball is a huge business. Really starting with that was kind of the start of this virus stuff was when the NBA closed, and then the March Madness. Nobody could imagine March Madness happening without fans, right? And then all of a sudden, a week later, there's no March Madness, and the billions of dollars that were lost by that alone. But there's a lot of really good players all over the world. As we're talking about this, we've had some of those players come here from different countries looking for an opportunity because we've got the great system that nobody else really has, where you can play basketball at a high level and also get a great education. And most other places in the world don't have that option. It's you either choose to continue to play basketball or you choose to go to college. So it's a great opportunity for kids from everywhere. But as far as the NBA obviously is the best league in the world, and they're looking all over the world for people. And then you have all these different levels of pro basketball all over. Some that are really, really high level, where guys are making millions of dollars to play in the Euro League, and then others where guys are making next to nothing, but they just want an opportunity to keep playing a game or two a week while they're working their other job. And a lot of those leagues, they only get a certain number of imports or people from outside of their country. So it's really hard for the American guys. When David Akibo was done playing for us a year ago or so, he had a lot of options because he has that English passport. So he could play. He ended up playing in Germany, but he had a lot of different options because of that, because he doesn't count as an import for those teams. And Matthew Ward-Hibbert that played for us is playing in England, and he had the English passport as well. So a lot of those guys have a little bit bigger opportunity. When people are taking their import, a lot of times they want big guys, and it's really hard because a lot of times they want a guy who played at the Division I level or somebody who just had off-the-chart stats like Tyler did, and I think he set himself up well with just his overall career here. that's kind of how it works. His agent is actually a Spaniard and had a lot of connections to that Spanish league, and that's how he went that way. But there's guys in the U.S. that do an absolutely great job being agents as well and trying to stay connected. And the summer basketball, it's I've gotten really big into watching international basketball anyway, and I love USA basketball. International competition is one of my favorite things to watch. But Las Vegas in the summer is kind of like spring training for Major League Baseball, and I know a lot of people from Minot have gone down and seen spring training down in Phoenix area, or some have gone to Florida as well. But in the summertime, really the month of July, usually Las Vegas is, they have the NBA Summer League, and a lot of the rookies are down there and guys trying to make a team. And they have all these, while they're having that, they have all these tryouts for guys that want to play internationally and all these different agents. It's a really fun place if you're a basketball junkie. I've heard there's other activities in Las Vegas as well that you could try out while you're down there. When I'm down there recruiting, I don't ever get to try any of those out. But I heard there's golf courses and other things to do as well.
We covered that in the Roger Coleman episode. He's from there, so we don't have to do a deep dive into Las Vegas.
There you go.
For your sake, yeah.
Go back to that episode if you need more details. But Tyler played down there in the summer, and that's a place where the guys trying to go overseas, and hopefully they'll have those this summer for some of the young guys that are trying to get on a team, because that's really the kind of place where a lot of guys meet up and get their work in and try to get seen by an agent in either a kind of a tryout camp or a league, or even just an open run down there.
And how much have you kept in touch with your former players, whether they're out playing somewhere overseas or just life in general, Yeah,
it's one of my favorite things as a coach to do. It's difficult because there's so many of them. Especially when I've been able to kind of be in some different places. That's been the one good thing about being here at Minot State for a number of years now is starting to have some consistency at where I'm at. But we have guys spread out all over the place, so it is a little harder to stay in touch. There's nothing more fun than being on the road this year. And we're at Bismarck. Rudy and his family come over, and when we're over at Bemidji, Nate Murken stops by the gym, and at Crookston, Channing Reed stops over with his wife and little one, and just able to see those guys. Thomas Korf brings a huge cooler full of Gatorade and chocolate milk for our guys when we play over at St. Cloud State. He's working down in that area, and it's a lot of fun to see those guys be around. And we had a great alumni weekend this year as well, where we had 30-some former players come back from all different eras. And that's one of the fun parts of it, is just seeing all those guys that played in a Beaver uniform over the years. And like I said, when we were back at Wayne, I think we had 8 guys come to that game to get together and just tell stories and talk about some of the things that we experienced as a basketball team. It's so fun to have that additional family that you have that you've gone through so many different times with. And, as you come up through basketball, especially here at Minot State, we're on the road so much on these long trips. Man, those are the things that the guys remember, is some argument they had on the bus for 3 hours that didn't really matter at the time. But it's a lot of fun to sit and just be around your teammates, that's for sure.
I can imagine. Now, you've been a part of a lot of camps and clinics all over the world. From the well-written Matt Murken biography at the Minot State Athletics website, they list Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, Kazakhstan, Serbia, Puerto Rico, and Canada. I know you have a big recruiting footprint, but why are you traveling so much for this stuff, man?
I guess the shorter answer is I really love basketball. I also really love to travel, and I really love to help people. And I've been able to do that through a lot of these clinics that I've been involved with, and see just different experiences. Be able to put myself in different people's shoes, I guess, and see parts of the world that maybe I want to be able to see. And kind of I got the chance to be on an airplane when I was in college because of college basketball. I never really traveled. I traveled some, but always by car. And when I was playing at Concordia, we were fortunate. We'd always play in California or Florida, Christmas or Thanksgiving. And our coaching staff was really committed to the college basketball experience, is what we call it now, and what we call it in our program. But to take you someplace that maybe you'd never get to go otherwise, and then you to play the game and to compete hard and to win, but also to spend time with your team and maybe and try to find some educational experiences along the way. That's really important to us here. This year we played down in Arkansas when we opened up, and we were able to go to the National Civil Rights Museum the first day. And on the way back, we were able to hit a Memphis Grizzlies game before we flew back, just kind of the way the schedule worked out. So to get our guys to see some things that maybe they normally won't see. And basketball has been that for me, opened a lot of doors. And then I got involved. The first international clinic I did was in Kenya, and kind of got involved through some networking with the guys at Athletes in Action, which is a Christian organization that does a lot of things with sports and leadership development, and they'll run basketball camps, but also certainly have a ministry part of it, and also have like a humanitarian aid part of it. And just after I went to Kenya that first time, I've been back 2 other times to the same area, but just and just traveling all over to, there's something to be said for being somewhere where you're different than everybody else, but you have the game of basketball in common, and everybody's there just to have fun and to learn. And the thing about those trips, and when I went to Kenya the first time, and we were in one of the slums in Nairobi, one of the biggest slums in the world, and it's a place that you can't really describe unless you've been there. But I went on a trip originally because I thought I was going to be able to help a lot of people, and then about halfway through, I realized, man, I'm learning more from these people here, and seeing how much this young kid enjoys basketball and how much fun he's having, even though he doesn't have any running water and doesn't, lives in a tin, literally a tin shack, and how much joy this person has. And for me personally, I'd see how much this kid loves Jesus, despite all the things. I learned so much from the people that I thought I was going to help. I was hooked on the travel and the basketball and the meeting other people, and every opportunity I've had since then, I've tried to travel, and anytime ever since then, anytime I travel, I try to do a service project of some sort, and really see the people and how they actually live in that country or in that area, and try to help somebody. And that's something we try to do with our team too. And that's to me, that's as big or bigger than winning or losing in basketball, is teaching that aspect of it, just because I've been truly blessed in my life through the game of basketball. That's kind of the story. I mean, I have so many stories from those trips.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I've seen a lot of different things in a lot of different countries, and it also makes you a better basketball coach, because you have to, I've taught, when we were in Rwanda, and things have changed now, we have Stefan Manzi on our team who's from Rwanda, and he didn't go to the clinic I was at, that I ran there, a week-long clinic for coaches and for players. But at that time, Rwanda, and we were able to go to a lot of the things there to learn. They were only 20 years off a genocide at that time when we got there, and one of the most moving places I've ever been. But they were still speaking a lot of French there. So I'm running a clinic with all kids that speak, and they don't speak English, and trying to teach basketball at that point in time. You better be a pretty good coach just to teach a clinic when nobody speaks the same language. And that made me really grow as a coach too.
A lot of experiences that put things in perspective, whether you're coaching basketball, playing it, or just life in general. It's awesome, Coach. Now, we already talked a little bit about players from Rwanda, England. You've had guys from Australia. You got Max Cody, Kobe
Right.
Jackson, Luis Maya from Brazil. Guys from all over the place are coming to play at Minot State. How much have you kind of relied on the international talent when recruiting your teams, and then ultimately just the production on the floor?
Yeah. So, when we start recruiting every year, and this year, because of COVID, we couldn't leave recruiting. The NCAA shut us down, and we were done. We were almost done by that point in time. We'd already signed 4 high school kids, and we got our top 2 guys that we wanted from junior college that we've known about for a long time. So, but we couldn't leave campus. I would love to never leave the city of Minot. The best thing that could happen for our basketball program is that there's really good players in town here every year, and I never have to leave because then I can spend more time with my family and relax a little bit. And we had a recruiting trip this year. I watched the 2 JUCO guys we got, and I watched one guy play on a Saturday night in Glendive, and the next guy was playing on Sunday in the middle of Illinois. So when we got Cam, he was, in my opinion, the best player in the Mondac, first team all Mondac. We got him to commit to us, but I watched him play in the regional semifinal, got in the van and drove as far as I could drive, and then pulled the van over and slept in the back of the van, and then woke up after about 3 hours of sleep. It was 0 degrees out. Woke up and then drove the rest of the way to watch the next game. That's college basketball recruiting.
Dang.
But we got both kids, right? So, but back to what we're talking about, we've had a lot of talent in Minot the last few years, which has been great. And we've signed the kids we wanted. First out of Bishop Ryan and Mason Hedberg and Ben Bolt, and then out of Minot High and Jackson Gunville and Easton Larson. I'm super excited about those 4 guys, and really excited about their ability to help our program for years to come. But you always want to start locally and then go from there. And the challenge, if you want to say that with recruiting, maybe in North Dakota, is when you have 750,000 people in your whole state, you have less people to pull from, and Saskatchewan and Manitoba and Montana, they're not the biggest metropolitan areas either. So just numbers wise, there's less people close by, and there's really good players in those places, but there's just not as many, right? So we've had to kind of branch out and be creative, and we've got a great benefit here at Minot State where if somebody comes from Rwanda or Australia, they pay the same tuition as somebody else. And we've had we've had a walk-on from Macedonia. It's called North Macedonia now.
Oh, okay.
They changed the name of it, which we had a good time with Damian. But Damian's working here in Minot now. Stuck around, graduated, then he stayed and he got his master's degree. And his dream, there's some kids that their dream is to come to the United States and get an education and find a job. And we've had some really great guys come do that. So that's kind of how the internet. Anyway, most of these kids I've seen play. We went to Australia and watched Max work out. That's something. If you're not afraid to sleep on a couch, and you can, airfare is expensive, but you got to pay for that stuff yourself. But then you can get a lot of kids and make some new friends. And I was able to watch Max play live in Australia from some contacts I have over there that I really trust. And he's been a really good player for us. And Ricci from Brazil played down there for a coach that was our graduate assistant a few years before. And with technology now, we're on Zoom doing a call right now, which everybody's been doing because of COVID. But you can be far away and still stay connected with people. Or maybe I've gotten a call on Saturday with an Australian kid. I'm calling him at 6 o'clock on Saturday night, which is 9 a.m. his time, and he's on towards the top of our recruiting board in the 2021 class. So it's just all over the place. You want to give everybody an opportunity and find the best players and the most committed young men, people that want to be really, really excited to be at Minot State. And that's why this year having Mason and Ben here, they're going to be really good players for us because they're super committed to Beaver basketball. They're both of them had family that had gone to school here, and their dads played here in the Hall of Fame. And you just got to find guys that really want to be part of your program and just love it every day. And I think we've got a lot of guys who want to do that.
Mm-hmm. How are those local guys like Ben Bowl, Mason Hedberg, Jackson Gunville, Easton Larson, just within this year, the Minot hyper-local guys, not even looking towards like Rudy's area of Bismarck. How are they really going to help you besides like me doing the cute story of the news about how they're staying home?
You know how they're going to help us is because they're super high character kids and young men, and that's the biggest thing. Is you want to coach guys that you absolutely love being around, and I can't tell you how they're not perfect by any means, players or people, but they just want to get better and they're willing to listen. I mean, that's the biggest thing. They're helping our program even if they never play for us. They're going to play for us, but even if they never played for us, they're helping our program and our campus because they're going to be guys that have a massive impact in the community in their lifetime. I'm so proud of those guys already. But if you want to go through the basketball side of it, which is what most people want to do, man, they can shoot that thing. And a lot of people saw him play in the Dome, at the state tournament or at some point in time through their career. So Mason can really shoot that same thing. He's super skilled. Ben can really shoot that thing and score it too. He's just a tough guy. Ben's mentality reminds me of Rudy. When you have a meeting with him and you ask what he wants to get better, he just looks at you like he's upset. And he says, I just want to win more games. And they say, well, what about you? I just want to win more. What do I have to do? So I love that about those guys. And then you've got Jackson and Easton coming in that, good programs. Man, Ryan was so good for that stretch, well coached. And then Minot High is such a tradition and won so many games. And Easton and Jackson were a big part of that. So guys that are used to winning, Jackson can really shoot that thing. Easton has a great talent. And his great talent is playing harder than everybody else and having a great motor. So really excited about those guys from right here within the city of Minot. And they're going to be young guys, and they're going to have some ups and downs for sure. But we're really excited that, we redshirted Easton and, redshirted Ben and Mason this year. And there's times that they could have helped us on the court this year. And it would have been small bursts, and that wasn't worth them playing because we're going to have them for a lot bigger times as they get older here, and that redshirt year is really going to pay off for them.
Yeah, so we've touched a couple of times. It's come up throughout the interview so far, Coach, and I get to see you in season once a week, sometimes more during press conferences and things like that. With that in mind, I just wanted to kind of get your insight about where your love for using cliches comes from.
That's a great question, man. See, that's kind of a cliche there, but
yeah.
The story. I don't know. It's not a plan of attack, but I think our guys would tell you
defense mechanism.
They would make fun of me because I like to keep things simple in a lot of ways, and just and to use the basketball cliches, and it's definitely something I would make fun of myself a lot for those things I say, but control the things you can control.
Yeah.
Committed to the process. All those things, they're so true though. Yeah, I should probably start those press conferences by saying some crazy stuff just for entertainment purposes and to keep all you guys on your toes. Sometimes we talk beforehand and we joke around a lot about or we'll have a serious conversation about the best place to eat in Minot or whatever it might be for the topics of the day. But to me, there's no magic bullet, right, for basketball coaching and for any coaching. You get guys who want to work hard, they want to love the game, and they want to be committed to getting a little bit better every day. Probably a cliche, but it's so true.
The magic bullet is also a cliche, Coach.
I thought about that as soon as I said that as well. But you're trying to you're just trying to focus on that process of getting a little bit better every single day.
Cliche.
Absolutely. But it's so true. I'm not smart enough to come up with new sayings and that sort of stuff. So I know you guys make fun of me, but I'm not going to change too much. And if you take, I could give the greatest pregame speech of all time, and I could have guys, weeping in the locker room or, I don't know, jumping up and down and punching each other, whatever they're doing in there from the greatest pregame speech of all time. But by the time we get out there and it's 5 minutes later and the national anthem's played, they better be self-motivated. They better be ready to play. They better have some toughness. and when the other makes a run, be able to fight through that. And that doesn't really. I mean, that's just who they are as people, not what I say as a coach.
That was my follow-up. I mean, how much of a different guy are you talking to the players? I mean, because, you don't tune me out, but, shoot, if you have a bunch of cliches, you might tune people out, Coach.
I probably speak a little more from the heart when it's just our team, and those guys know that. And I think one thing that I've really learned as a coach, when I was at Jamestown, and 30 years old and a head coach, and fairly close in age to some of those guys, they didn't get a peek inside my heart too much. They saw a super intense guy that was going to outwork everybody. And the same thing that I promise every recruit to this day is the best you can do as far as work ethic is to tie me. The best you can do as far as wanting to win and compete is tie me. You're not going to beat me. And when you're in the program, I think our guys realize that and respect that. We want to have a working man's program where we know we're not perfect, and we sometimes know we're ugly. And if you want to ask about the beard later, that's where the ugly comes in. I wanted to be ugly.
Okay.
Be uglier than I already am, so I grew this beard in the off season to remind our guys it's not about what you look like, it's about the work you put in. But our guys really believe in that. In our program, it's a culture of work and that sort of thing. And the culture thing is a cliche too in coaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see the mashups of those clips of coaches talking about culture, but it is who you are every day. And I'm not perfect, but I try to be the same and consistent every day and just grow a little bit every day. I ask my guys to do the same thing. But like you said, behind the scenes, there's a little bit more from the heart, and I get choked up when I see our guys have success and when I see them get better, and I see them grow as people, because those are the things that are going to last over time, and those are the things that are going to change a community and change people's lives. So I knew you were going to ask me about the cliches.
What's the closest thing that you've said to the press that wasn't a cliche? Like hello? Hello is a cliche because that always happens.
That's a good question. I know I'm not smart enough to come up with anything new, for sure. But I will. I will tell you. The stuff I tell you is not. It ain't a lie. I'll tell you that. I might tell you the whole story all the time. And when I sit there and talk about how excited I am to coach those young guys from right here, from Ryan and Minot High, I'm not joking, man. Those guys are, and to use the cliche, those guys do have a chance.
Yeah.
to be really good for us. But I mean that too. How good those four guys are as players is gonna depend on what they do between today and between when they're sophomores, juniors, seniors. I'm pretty sure they're going to do enough to be pretty good for us. Mm-hmm. But that's up to those guys to prove that to me.
I think the best chance for guys to hear from you, I'll never have the opportunity because I have to be back on the news, but maybe like a heat-of-the-moment post-game interview for Scotty Cattell or Alex Eisen from the newspaper, because you're definitely going to be drawing back on the game that just happened. Sure, you might read from some stats, but, you might be more open than Coach. And I just segue talking about paper guys. Let's talk a little bit about the friendship that you've been able to have with Garrick Hodge. It seems like you guys are quite close.
We are, man. I still talk to him quite a bit. I don't know how that got forged. I guess I do. So as far as the media goes and whatever you want to say about media now and being under attack and a lot of people have a lot of opinions on, it's kind of crazy now that fake news is it's a common theme or common word now, I guess, things that people say. Nobody said that 5 years ago or whatever. But I actually have, so I come from a family that's really a baseball family and play a lot of sports.
That was one of his scoops on you.
Yeah, baseball's been big in my family, and just since we're kind of spitballing it here, and you know, I got burned out on baseball, playing so much and on so many leagues as a kid, because it was kind of, and it wasn't like I was pushed by my family or anything. I had a lot of opportunities to play, and I just kept taking them. And then, to be honest, like, I learned the beauty of a great coach, because I had an unreal. I had good coaches in baseball too, but my best coaches I ever had were basketball coaches, both from junior high and high school. And then we started winning a bunch of games and played in the state title game, and then got recruited for both sports in college, and then kind of fell in love with basketball a little bit more. But the people in my family that aren't involved in sports are journalists, really, and editors of newspapers. Or my brother was an editor of a newspaper, and now he has his own media business, and a lot of people do that in my family. So just respecting the work that all people in the media do, and knowing that it's just it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of creativity, and sometimes it's thankless, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, just like a lot of jobs are. But that's kind of how the background that I have from my family that led me to really connecting with some of the media people that we have here, and just really appreciating the job that they do, how important it is to tell our story and tell the story of the young people in our program, and just get those different stories out there, and have some diversity in what in those stories. It takes a lot of work. So that's kind of how Garrick and I connected. And then we've had a lot. We share a lot of we like to. That's the guy that gets the real behind the scenes. We've had some off the record
Ouch, coach.
discussions that go down a lot of different paths, and we still do to this day. I mean, I think now that he's out of this area, he loves to hear the Minot Division II angle on what's going to happen with COVID, and I'm hearing the SEC angle on it from him, or some other part of the country. But that's kind of the background on him. But we've had a lot of people cover our program that, and doing this interview today, I appreciate it. It's just getting stories out there, man. It's awesome, and giving the people that love to talk sports or love to talk about whatever. I just it's awesome to be able to have those opportunities to connect with them.
So from hanging out with Garrick and your family, are you a paper guy over a TV guy?
Yeah, I'd probably lean that way if I had to choose.
Hurts real deep.
Yeah, I know, man. I know, but you can't. I'm showing my age a little bit here, but you couldn't be walking down the driveway back in the day and having, we lived in an area where we didn't have cable for a long, long time as a kid. So you had to walk and get that box score and get that newspaper and see how your team, see the box score of the basketball game or the football game or the baseball game, and then you get a sporting news. Oh man, that was big time.
Oh, right there, sporting news. Yes.
Sporting news back in the day, man. That was like a Saturday for me was get up pretty early and you're going out and mowing the lawn or planting the garden or whatever we had to do that day. Whatever our outside jobs were, or we had to do a lot of outside work where we grew up. And most other days after school, I was getting jump shots up in the driveway. Which I'm glad that's back too now, because the gyms are closed. You got to be able to shoot in the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best
throwback.
thing to do as a player. But then when you get maybe a lunch break, a couple more hours of work, but you're trying to get that work done, because when I'm a kid, you wanted to walk down the driveway and get that sporting news, and then that was the whole afternoon on a Saturday, was going through those stories.
Sweet. So drawing all things together, your love for the media, the paper boys, using cliches, underrated love for baseball, kind of draws in with, why do you not only use cliches, but also cheer for the St. Louis Cardinals as well?
That's it.
That's a double killer.
So it's the same reason I don't follow the NFL, because I was a Rams fan, a St. Louis Rams fan. I grew up in Iowa, kind of between where I grew up. You're kind of right between Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Kansas City, St. Louis. So you could get to any of those places, and certainly, you know, the best reception on the radio was coming out of St. Louis. I think it's KMOX is the, but Jack Buck was on the radio doing the Cardinals games at that point in time, and that's you know, that was growing up, is being able to listen to because we didn't have cable, like I said, but being able to listen to a St. Louis Cardinals game, and Jack Buck, man, a legend, right, in broadcasting. That's a winner after every game. I mean, that was part of my childhood, and just having you know, having that kind of growing up, is being able to have that that radio station, listen to those games, kind of sparked the love of St. Louis Cardinals baseball for all the way back to my grandpa, kind of from the area that we're from, and so that's how that got started. And then so then I decided I might as well be a St. Louis Rams fan for football, and then Kurt Warner is from my hometown, and you know, went there when it was the greatest show on turf and all that stuff. I was really into that because we just grew up playing whatever sport was in season, right? Playing multi-sport athletes, that's a whole other thing you can talk to coaches about, how important that is, and not specializing in a certain sport. I can't tell you how important that is, just to go play. You know, way too many people are worried about travel teams and being on this team or that team. The best thing you can do is go play sports out in the playground and play a bunch of different sports and just have fun playing those things. But that's a whole other topic, probably. If this thing doesn't bomb and you ever want to have me back, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
That's how we got going on St. Louis Cardinals baseball as kids.
That, and I believe like the trope of playing the Cardinal way probably got you started on cliches early in life as well, I believe, probably.
It probably did. You know, you got that handbook about, you know, the best fans in baseball, all that stuff that most other fan bases can't stand to be around. But, you know, you Cardinals fans all think they know how to talk baseball, right? They think they know what you're supposed to do and not do in baseball, right? That's why other fan bases don't like Cardinals fans. But the thing I love about baseball, man, is you got to be able to have a conversation, right? If you're going to really love a baseball game, and you got to be able to sit out there for 3 hours and talk about anything and everything. And that was, you know, probably I've been fortunate to have a lot of good sports moments, I guess, as when I was an athlete. But probably my favorite sports moments were when I was playing shortstop in college and my brother was playing second base in baseball season, and we we just had some conversations out there in the infield that over by the time we're on our number 3 and number 4 pitchers on Sunday of a 4-game doubleheader, and the score's 17-16 because we didn't have a lot of depth at pitching. You have a lot of conversations out around second base, and there's a lot of runners over there too that you're holding on. So you have a lot of things to talk about.
You get to know people.
You sure do. You sure do.
That's fantastic. Talking about anything and everything during a baseball game for 3 hours. We're about a third of the way there already, Coach. So I want to step away from the sports for a second here. Recently, happily married guy. Tell me a little bit about what the wedding planning was like with Chelsea going in. How much did you get to decide about the big day, and how was the food and the reception afterwards?
Wow, we're going into every detail. This is the public service announcement for anybody who's going down that, which our graduate assistant Joel Wallace and our assistant coach Maverick Harris are getting married. So this summer here in August, hopefully.
Culture, Minot State culture among the coaches.
There you go. So you got to understand that you've got to be involved in the decision and really invested in the decision without actually making a decision. That's the key to that, right? You've got to make sure that you've got to say a lot like, that sounds good, what do you think about it, right? Mm-hmm. Because then you're invested, but you're not actually picking the wrong color or picking the wrong flower or picking the wrong main course. And then you just that's where the cliches come from, right? You've got to, that paid off for me, because you've got to be invested in the decision, but not actually making any definitive decision, because then you can't be wrong. But you certainly can't say, just do whatever you want to do, or definitely don't say, I don't care. You've got to care a whole lot, right? And then you get invested in those decisions, and then everybody's happy. That's my advice to those guys that are getting married anytime soon. But we had a lot of fun. I'll tell you that at our at our wedding and at our reception. It was a great time, and we had 8 guys that I played with in college came down to that wedding in Texas, and none of them live in Texas. So that tells you the importance and the impact I think that sports can have, and it tells you that teammates matter, and some of the things that you can learn through sports and the relationships that you can make. So it's been great, and it's the best recruiting job that I've ever done, is to recruit Chelsea to move from to grow up, to be born in Minneapolis, to grow up in LA, to move to Houston, to live in Salt Lake City, to live in Austin, Texas, all cities of 1 million people, and then convince her to come live in a town the size of Minot, which I absolutely love, but it's not 1 million people. But I convinced her to come here and love it, so that's the best recruiting job I've done.
That's awesome. Happy for you guys. I want to get you out on this, Coach. Still, even when you're married, you're still able to get away with having the off-season beard. That's impressive.
Yeah. It's actually, that was the final call on that. Is that my wife actually likes it for some reason, but the talk with the guys was, what you look like. It's about what you do. And then I started growing a beard. I was already kind of ugly, but then I got the scraggly beard going, and trying to tell those guys, gave them the talk of there's a lot of street dogs. That's what we want in our team, right? Is people that are kind of maybe a little rough around the edges or whatever, but love basketball and love being part of a team. And again, it's not what you here's the cliches again, but it's not what you look like. It's what you do and the work you put in. And there's no better representation of that than when they have to look at me and wonder why the heck this beard's so out of control right now.
Yeah, I get it, man. Again, thanks for your time, Coach, with it. And we're just grateful to be able to host you for your 1 millionth cliche ever. Thanks a lot.
There should be balloons and things that come down for that, confetti.
They are at my house.
Okay.
That's all right. Good. Sounds good. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.